People are going to wonder why we're dancing when there's no music.
Probably. We are live, Daddy-O. Okay, welcome everybody. I'm Michael Harris.
And I'm James Scott.
And welcome to the almost live Fast Freedom Formula video call. We call it almost live because we haven't figured out all the technical stuff yet. So we can't actually do a live stream because we don't know how. So
yeah, we're working on it though.
Definitely working on that. So today I lost my thingamabobber. What are we doing today?
I don't know. We're talking about the title of our show today is the Hokey-Pokey of change, doing the right dance steps to get the results you want.
Thank you. I had it up on a page and it went away. So
okay.
Basically what James and I discussed is that we wanted to talk about, what hypnosis is, what coaching is, and kind of like how to pick, what's the best thing, for you in terms of change work, because both he and I we see lots and lots of people for various things, but not everybody needs hypnosis. Not everybody needs coaching, and definitely not everybody wants therapy. So, just to start, my experience of hypnosis started out kind of like backwards in terms of I was working for a company, and this company that I worked for, they had every genre possible in terms of the workforce. They had ex-felons, they had people who, I don't know what an public education, all the way to people who, we had architects and we had engineers and all of that stuff. So you can see how that there might be a possibility of a communication disconnect. And so I saw this thing on communication. So I went and took an NLP weekend thing, and you know what happened? Same thing happened probably to you. I was hooked. It was like,
oh, absolutely.
Oh my God, this is I have my little nerdy glasses on and my lab coat, and it was fabulous. It was absolutely fabulous. But they kept saying the same thing over and over again. This is just as good as hypnosis. You don't really need hypnosis if you do this. And let's use a technical term. That was an incongruity. And it bugged me until I actually took hypnosis. And then I went, oh, now I understand why they say you don't need hypnosis, because they're using conversational hypnosis. Have you ever had anything like that happen with you?
Well, I had the same thing happen with me, the exact same thing, because, but it was a little bit backwards, because I had been introduced to hypnosis to hypnosis a few years before I really got into NLP. NLP was very confusing to me when I first tried to learn it, because I tried to learn it from a book, just from a book, right? And I'm like, and it was a Bandler book, so there you go, and then I got into hypnosis, but I was very fortunate that one of my first teachers in hypnosis was very well versed in NLP, had been trained by Bandler and Grinder and Diltz and these people and Bateson and all the original people. And so he incorporated a lot of NLP into hypnosis. So when I got to the NLP thing, and they said the same thing, you don't really need hypnosis because NLP is, but at least my instructor at that point said, this is basically, we're using Ericksonian conversational hypnosis techniques in this. So yeah, it was weird, because at first I was like, what do you mean you don't need hypnosis? I don't understand. And then, but then it begin to make sense. And the interesting thing is that one of the, I just not to go on a side tangent, but just one little thing is that whole thing being experiential, as sitting in a classroom with other people and learning it and experiencing it, I should say, rather than just trying to read out of a book, was very productive for me. That was more congruent. You talked about that incongruence. I saw that congruency there growing inside of me, because it was more experiential. So
okay, so we digress. There may be people out there that have no freaking clue what we're talking about. So the short version for me is people that come into my office now on my computer screen, because we don't have offices anymore. They come in and they have this issue or this problem or this habit or this behavior in this context.
Yep.
And they want you to turn on your hypnotic vacuum cleaner and go and suck that baby right out of their head or their heart, and then put something new in. And then they go, see you, bye now. And that is what most people think about hypnosis, is it is a mechanism to remove things.
Right, exactly. And that's the exact experience I have is with the majority of my clients or people that contact me.
Conversely, coaching is a completely different animal. And I'm going to talk about a couple of different models of coaching. And you know, James, you jump in anytime or try to gag me, whatever. Okay.
No, right.
My original, prior to me doing what I'm doing, going back to grad school and all that good stuff, is I owned a personal training company. Okay. And most people think of trainers as coaches. Okay. But personal trainers and really a lot of the coaches out there, they're not coaches, they're teachers. They're teaching somebody new skills. Okay. My textbook definition for coaching is someone who evaluates your strengths, let you know what your strengths are, how to use them better, evaluate your asymmetries, you could also call those weaknesses, and then they might show you methods of improving you know, hard skills versus soft skills, you know, in a workplace. Or if let's say you were an athlete, because I've worked with a lot of athletes, if you have asymmetries in your training protocols, or if you have asymmetries in your body, you're setting yourself up for an injury. So you would want to train those asymmetries in order to A, not have an injury, or B, not get fired in the corporate environment. Because if you have bad communication skills, you know, you might be the best worker on earth, but if you piss everybody off, you're not going to get promoted. You might get fired. Okay.
Right.
The third and most important thing, at least in my opinion, is the purpose of a coach is to point out your blind spots.
Ooh, yeah.
Okay? Because those by definition, you're blind to them. You're not going to see them. They're unconscious, or they are so far outside of your awareness. You really need somebody to walk up and go, hello, you know. And
and if I could jump in here real quick, that's right in line with how I define a coach, because I was told a long time ago, and I wish I could remember where I learned this, but nonetheless, I was told that the definition of a coach is someone who doesn't teach you new skills, they make the skills you have better. You know, like a football coach doesn't teach you how to throw a ball or you know, from the get-go, from the ground up, right? Or teach you how to block from the ground up, you know, usually, you know, like especially like a professional NFL coach or something like that. They're there to make you better at what you do. And like you said, to identify those blind spots. That's a really keen insight, Michael, because I never really thought about it like that, but you're absolutely correct. It's as a coach, and I do coaching as well, we're identifying those asymmetries, which is a great word, but those asymmetries but those blind spots, and helping people, because these are things that they may not realize are standing in their way of getting more of what they want, right? And that is there's a strong difference between hypnosis and coaching, as you're pointing out. And coaching is about you know, getting that, you know, whereas hypnosis is like plop down in your chair, fix me now, get rid of this thing that I don't want. Or, you know, coaching is about getting more of what you want. At least that's the way that I think we see it.
One of my mentors, also one of my instructors for the NLP coaching program, Tim Hallbaum, he said it a really interesting way, because everybody that was in that class was coming from a therapeutic context. And he said, truly the difference between therapeutics, hypnosis, NLP versus coaching is when somebody comes into your office, we'll just use that metaphor like it still happens. And they come in and you go, wow, that's a horrible problem you've got there. Let me help you fix that. Okay, that's where that whole mindset comes from. Okay, coaching is a completely different paradigm where you go, huh, that's an interesting problem or challenge that you have there, James. What are you going to do about it?
Right.
And that is a huge shift. And if you bring in another one of my mentors is Stephen Gilligan. Okay, and so now we're going to get into the realm of generative coaching and generative change work with hypnosis or NLP, and that's a completely different animal as well, because there's a lot of popularity, if we want to use that word, with micro changes in generative change. You know, so somebody might come in old school, you know, you come in, put them into trance, you do blah, 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 and, you know, they walk out and they have a completely different meaning of whatever the problem was. Well, when you're doing generative change or micro change work, they might still have the same problem that they had when they walked in the door, but it's different. It is different. And I understand the mindset that, you know, we are learning machines. And you know better than I do, James. I mean, you work with people, you work with you have an interesting, what is the term that you use for veterans? There's a very specific term that you use.
For veterans?
Yeah, for veterans that are having a post problem coming out of the war zone.
Oh, well, I'm not quite sure what you're referring to in terms of
instead of saying PTSD, you say something.
Oh, combat operational stress.
Combat operational. I actually love that term far better than PTSD.
Yeah, I can't take credit for it, but that's a term that we use. It's combat operational stress because.
And one of the best metaphors that I have ever heard is from our buddy James Trepp. Okay, and he worked with combat veterans a lot. And the thing that he would do was really, really interesting, because he would just basically tell them a story, and he'd go, you know, I'm not really. It's like, you've been diagnosed with PTSD or blah blah blah, and the guy's like, yeah, and he's like, well, I'm not really down with diagnosis. Like, you won't get any diagnosis from me,
right, except
for one. And that one diagnosis that you will get from me is that you are uniquely human. And humans learn. And I don't know your story, I don't know your history, but I do know that you learned how to respond and how to stay alive in that place.
Right.
And now you're not there anymore, so you're going to have to learn something new rather than your old way of responding, because it's not working anymore. And that's a really nice way of framing, you know, what he was doing, and whether he was doing it conversationally or if he was doing formal trance. And that's kind of the other thing. I'm going to flip over to you. What do you think the real differences are between doing formal versus informal trance, or generational, or, you know,
generative trance?
Generative trance. You know, what do you see those the differences between those things?
Well, I think it really comes down. It starts with knowing what the hell it is you're trying to change or trying to achieve. Right. But in terms of which approach you take, you know, and that's not to say that one approach is better than the other, but one approach is better than the other. Okay. In most cases, I see the difference as, when you're talking about formal, trance structured framework hypnosis, or as I like to call it, direct authoritarian hypnosis. That's where you're at, you have an idea of what the challenge may be that this person has. You may not, and you're looking at, okay, you're putting them in a trance, and you're using suggestion and guided imagery and things that's going to get the change, right? And you're using specific structured techniques, right? But the idea is that there's a very formal structure to it. You're saying, okay, I'm going to put you into trance. I'm going to tell you this, and then I'm going to emerge you from hypnosis, and you're going to go off on your merry way, which is very good for a lot of things, right? For fixing a problem that we know what that problem is, or at least we know what the symptomology of that, the effects of that problem are. When you're talking in my model of the world, when you're talking about conversational change, we're doing that more covert. Everybody wants to talk about covert hypnosis, right? And it's covert, but it's conversational, and it's using, yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, the whole I'm going, look into my eyes type of, yeah, exactly. The whole Svengali type of thing, right? Which there's power in that, sometimes working with the person's own belief system sometimes, but sometimes working with their misconceptions can be fun, right? Because you can use those to affect change. However, sometimes we have to dispel those, because we can't make a person do something they don't want to do, right? But with the conversational hypnosis, it is more in my view, it is more gentler is not the right word. I'm trying to think of the word. It's more passive rather than active, but it still gets the work done. But it's also, because it is conversational, it is sometimes can be a lot more effective in extrapolating from the person what the heck is going on, what is their structure. And then the generative change, just to wrap that up, the generative change is where you're taking something that they already do and do well, or do at least slightly well, and you're just enhancing that. And with the micro change thing, I wanted to mention that I'm a fan of micro changing in coaching, right? But not necessarily in the work that I do, the change work that I do. Sometimes it depends on, I'm very client centered, as are you. So sometimes I'm working with a person, and even a little change is going to make a massive change for them, and that's great. But I'm also that kind of guy who likes to get in there. It's just the warrior spirit of me, to get in there, and I want to shake things up, and I want to get change right now, because again, the majority of my clients are those people who plop down and go, I am screwed up, please fix me. And I'm like, well, you're not screwed up, you're doing, this problem you have is functioning properly, functioning excellently. Right, but let's make this work right for you. So that's the difference that I see. But in the conversation, it's interesting too, because when people come to me, and I think this is a point that we should make very clear. When people come to me as a hypnotist, I call myself a hypnotist, right? And I take great pride in calling myself a hypnotist, right? And there seems to be this people waving this banner now, in this whole movement to not call yourself a hypnotist, call yourself anything else but a hypnotist. Why? I use hypnosis, right? People come to me because they're looking for a hypnotist. And when I am giving a person, they come to me, they expect an experience where they're experiencing hypnosis. So if I use conversational hypnosis, it can literally sound like I'm just talking to them. And then they leave and change happens, but they don't. A lot of times those people don't have something to hang that change on, which I think is very important, because even though you and I both know that we can sit here and talk to someone over coffee and their life changes dramatically. That's not to say that we're some amazing wizards, although we are, but the tools that we use are amazing, right? But some people can't grasp that. They cannot accept that, rather that we just talked to them, had a conversation, told them a story, and now their life has changed. So I I will do both. I'll use the conversational hypnosis and get all the change work, and then do the formal hypnosis, so that, and just generate that generative change or whatever, so that they have something to hang the phenomenon on.
Exactly. I have two stories. Okay.
Sure, please.
One of them, thousands of years ago when I first got into business, and most people that are in the service industry, that are practitioners of something,
right?
Whether it's yoga or hypnosis or Reiki or whatever, they suck at marketing. Okay. So I used Living Social for a long time. It was before Groupon bought them,
right?
And it kind of separated it separated out the tire kickers versus people who are actually looking for services. And I have a bad review that actually transferred over to Groupon. And the bad review was, well, we were supposed to have an hour-and-a-half session, and I was out of there in 50 minutes. And oh, sure, it worked, but I didn't get all. and because that leads into my second story. Where I used to work with USA Gymnastics doing, I would do we called it mental coaching, but straight up hypnosis with the athletes. And let me tell you, those athletes are freaking amazing. Okay.
Oh yeah.
You've got kids that are between, I didn't work with anybody below 12, but 12 to 16 years old. And for all purposes, they're pro athletes.
Oh yeah.
They work out 6 days a week. They train 35 hours a week.
Wow.
Okay. That's what pros do.
I don't sleep that much a week.
Yeah, they train 30, 35 hours a week, and then they have a game on Sunday. Well, these kids train year round, and their season is from January 2nd until May, to the end of May. Okay. And all the rest of the time, they're back in training. So anyway, these kids, they are awesome. So you can get them in there, and the parents and the coaches, they used to stack these kids like cordwood. And I'd see one an hour. I had one group flew me up to Colorado Springs to where the gymnastics thing was there, and I saw 10 kids in 10 hours for 4 days.
Ooh.
10 hours a day. Yeah, I was just like boom, 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 boom. Walk in, sit down, get rapport, do the work, and all this other stuff. And it's kind of like being a triage surgeon, or like being a surgeon. If you do the same injuries over and over, you get better at it. Okay. So I would end up spending 30 minutes maybe with the kid, with whatever it was that they wanted to work on. If they came in with a fear or a performance issue, we go out in the gym, we'd test it, because you test your work. Okay. And
that's a good point. Always test your work.
and then you turn them loose. Okay. And then I would spend 20 minutes with the parent doing conversational hypnosis so they wouldn't undo the change, and I'd spend another 10 minutes with the coach so they wouldn't undo the change. Because most people out there, we have typical language patterns, and a lot of those language patterns are really negative.
Most of them are negative.
Have you seen, you've seen the movie American Beauty?
Yes.
Okay, with Annette Bening?
Yes.
Okay. Typical perfect response when she sees her daughter after the dance routine. She goes, "That was awesome, honey. You didn't screw up once."
Right. You didn't screw up once. Right.
Yeah. So in my, kind of like a funny way to wind this up. To me, this is the difference between hypnosis and coaching. Ready?
Sure.
That's hypnosis. That's coaching. There's really, to me, there's like no, like almost everything I do is conversational. Yeah, when I get into real trouble is when somebody comes in or somebody is expecting formal trance, and I'm looking around, I don't have a wristwatch, but I do have a magic pen.
Right.
I will wave my magic pen, and I will do formal induction if that's what they want.
Sure.
But there's an expectation, and you actually alluded to that earlier, is that there is a stigma or an expectation that people have that hypnosis is some type of special state, kind of like bowling, where you got to change your shoes in order to do it. And you, with that awesome hairdo, are the one that is, putting them into trance. No, you're
Right.
not. We go in and out of consciousness all of the time. Have you ever walked into the kitchen and gone, why am I here? I am in the kitchen. I obviously walked here. I wonder what it was.
No, I walk into my kitchen to eat, but yes, no, but
Okay.
but no, yes, of course, and that's the whole thing is, we're just, everybody's always in a trance. We're just helping them. They're jumping from one to another. We're just hopping in there and hijacking it for their purposes, right? For their best interest.
So with the title of your show, how to do the right dance steps, ask yourself this question is, what kind of change do you want? Do you want a really specific change in a really specific area of your life? Or do you want something bigger? Do you want a bigger life change? And I do transformational coaching. So I get the people who have stayed in line, followed the crowd, saved 18% of their gross income, and they've done clicked all of the boxes and all of the things that they were supposed to do, but they're still unhappy.
Right.
Okay. And to me, that's when I get the little trickle of saliva in the corner of my mouth. We're like, okay, let's party. And that's going to take more than one session, because in essence, what you're doing that has gotten you to where you are today, that version of yourself is not going to get you to the next level. So the question you need to ask yourself is, who will I be after I've made that transformation?
Yeah.
And be that person.
Exactly.
Cool.
And I think that's the whole point of a coach, is to get that person to realize who that person is going to be, and how do they get there? How do they become that person? And again, just to wrap this up, that this is, that's where I believe a coach coaching is the right framework for that, because again, you're not fixing something, you're making something stronger, better. You're enhancing something rather than fixing something. And a lot of people in change work, they're like, don't ever say you're fixing something, because that insinuates that the person is broken. Well, yeah, people come to me all the time and say, fix me. I'm working with their model of the world, not my model of the world, right? Because I don't think people are broken. I think they're working perfectly. But I will tell you, if a person comes to me with combat operational stress, right, and hypervigilance and all this stuff, if I look at them and go, oh, you're not broken, you're working just perfectly, that person's I'm gonna be broken in just a couple of minutes. Exactly, right? Because the majority of my clients are combat veterans, right? And so I have to say, they're like, I'm broken, please fix me. I'm like, not a problem, brother or sister. I got you. We got this. Yes.
You also work with police and other first responders.
Exactly. And we talked about this, and I just want to say very quickly, there's a huge epidemic among first responders right now of suicides. And those people are coming to you, and just coming to me, and coming to people like you, Michael, and other people, practitioners, in distress rather, and they're, and for us to be all touchy feely and go, no, you're perfect just the way. Those people, that's not what they need to hear. Yes, you need to calm them down, but so anyway, I just wanted to mention that, because it's but this coaching, and then the last thing is that with the hypnosis, one of the things that I try to do is move them, if they're the right person, move them from the hypnosis into the coaching, because some people are great. They come to see me, they're done, they're happy, and they move on. But some people want to, once they get that fixed, whatever they need to get fixed, now they're at that point where they're like, okay, now I want more of what I've got now. And that's where coaching comes in, you know, and that's where people like you do wonderful things with them and take them to that next, you know, that next continuing growth level. So
Yeah. But I also still do hypnosis.
of course you do. Of course you do.
Okay.
And just like I do coaching, but you know, it's just, you know, it's what people need. It's whatever they need, whenever they need it. And that's the right dance steps, right? We're doing the Hokey-Pokey. That's the whole thing. You put your left foot in, left foot right, you know, whatever, but you're doing the right steps for what you need at that time.
Exactly. So thanks everybody for watching. I know we kind of went all over the place, but that's what we do. So please like and share this. You can follow us on Facebook at the Fast Freedom Formula group. I think it's a group page, but there's also a page. But we're also on YouTube under Fast Freedom Formula. James, they can find you under James Scott on Facebook, correct?
Correct. Or they could find me under James Scott, or they could find me under Chesapeake Bay Hypnosis.
Okay, cool. So anyway, next week, we're going to be doing something interesting, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. You'll have to wait for the posting. But thanks everybody for watching, and talk to you soon.
Take care, guys.